Look. Okay, 51-7, take it to the grave. Legends never die, that's why we still awake. Sun keep beaming, city still breathing. Living in the moment, never gonna leave it. 51-7, take it to the grave. Legends never die, that's why we still awake. Sun keep beaming, city still breathing. Living in the moment, never gonna leave it. I ain't never seen a city sleep. You can really hit a city breathe. They be saying we ain't got culture, they just don't know what it really means. No, we gotta represent, heavy underrated, yeah, we gotta make a scene. No shade to the other guys, but you can't deny we the one to be. Capital city, the map looking pretty when we on it. So community driven, the people we living with, loving each other.
Mike Lynn.
What's up, bro?
My friend, my brother.
Right on.
Comrade. We've been working together for a few years now.
Yeah.
If I recall correctly, it was somewhere around 2020 that I listened to a podcast that you and your wife.
Yeah, I don't know that you've ever told me how it started for you. That's good. Tell me.
Well, here we go. We're about to get to it.
I remember how I met you, but I never remember how you. Yeah. So how did we come into your living room?
So I think it was someone put me on to America 20 to Life, and this husband and wife duo were saying things that I was like, that makes sense.
Resonated.
There was this vision cast about this thing called The Village. And I was like, it started to bring me back to work I had done 20 years ago on Baker Street, right? What we learned later is, of course, we knew many of the same folks. And in fact, Baker Street was home to you for a while. But it was a vision of community, of grassroots leadership, of voice, but it just made sense. And so at some point, I can't remember if I called or texted or just found you somehow.
Yeah.
So, which sounds like stalking. So I stalked you until we met.
Yeah.
And you have a great story of this slick white boy just coming up.
It was some tough times for you to be howling at me too, bro. It worked though. Yeah.
Well, so we got to talking. And I said, Mike, I really believe in this vision that you've cast. We were able to get some work done. From the day that I've met you, you have had an honesty and a truth and a spirit of both teaching and sacrificial love that has both inspired me and challenged me in good ways. It has been a privilege, remains a privilege, but it has been a privilege to call you a friend, but also a colleague in several different projects.
Yeah.
So maybe to the degree that we want to, let's break down the Village first, and then we'll get into maybe some of the current work that's being done.
Yeah, man. So, I mean, to touch back on the story you told about when I got this call from this white cat during the pandemic, during the George Floyd uprising kind of time, we was kind of stagnant on what we were going to do with the Village at the time. We didn't have a 501c3. We had kind of been trying to work through that while still doing the work. And then I think your phone call was really timely because there's this guy that came in and just said, I want to empower you. I want to figure out how I can help, how I can get you guys going. What do you need? And, you know, I didn't trust it at first. I was like, man, come on, because you talk good. You know, like you slick. You ran through the conversation, was too smooth. So I was like, man, this smooth talking cat. But I trusted it. I went back and talked to my wife, and I was like, you know, this cat, I met up with him. This is who he is. This is who he says he is, what he says he would like to do for us. And it just kind of fit all the gaps that we had. And one of the big things is with you know, little nonprofits or, you know, just folks trying to do the work is there's a lot of work to be done. And that work doesn't ever consist of the paperwork and the administrative stuff. So, you know, you really, I think that you played the role. You didn't try to be involved in any ways that you couldn't, or didn't try to be like in the front of anything. You just like, hey, I want to help out, get your 501c3 going. I think that's what you need. From our conversation, you knew that that's what we needed, and we had like paperwork that was half done. It was scribbled on napkins type stuff, and you helped us to get that going, and just really supported my wife in that. So that was that, man. We built the Village through some really tough times, given the pandemic was going on. There was this racial reckoning and this diversity push and conversation around equity So with the work we were doing in the community, I think I really realized real early on that there was a lot of upstream stuff that needed to be done too. So it wasn't just about, feeding folks or, talking about gun violence and all of that. It was really like, where's this problem coming from? And so for me, it was going upstream on that. In 2020, like that was where it was like, all right, let's go upstream. So, we just started to find out where people had kind of let things go, let things fester, let the lead paint come off the wall. And that's where we really got to work on that type of stuff. But again, that was a really tough time. I was involved with Black Lives Matter heavily at that point. Was involved with the NAACP at that point, all whilst trying to build the village at the same time. So,
That's right.
It's just one of the things I think really helped me to navigate what needed to be built was my own struggles I had been going through, and then where I went to get help were a lot of times dead ends. And I started to recognize that I'm the help I need. You know what I mean? So if I'm the help I need, then maybe I could be the help others need too. And so prayed on it a lot, had some good mentors around, including yourself, to kind of help me guide that. So the village was created and born.
Well, and then what you just described is a village, right?
Yeah.
It's many folks, it's many perspectives, it's many backgrounds, but also, I mean, you and I have had a lot of really important conversations around growth, right? Like growth that we have had to personally have, right? We are both early 40s.
Wait a minute, man. Don't be putting me on. I am.
Listen, black don't crack. Black don't crack. I am early 40s.
I couldn't get away with 29 over here. I thought I was going to be all right. Yeah.
But one of us is early 40s. One of us doesn't look it. Must be nice.
Yeah.
And we're husbands and we're fathers, right? And we have a feeling of responsibility, which is both a burden and a privilege.
Yeah.
Right? To not speak for those who cannot speak, because everyone can speak, but to play both an advocacy and maybe navigation role. I'm not entirely sure what that second role is, right? Because the reality is this: we know this. There is voice in all people. Sometimes we just gotta give them the megaphone.
Yeah.
Sometimes we need to get the hell out of the way. Sometimes we need to set the table.
Yeah.
Sometimes we need to drag folks in. Sometimes we need to push folks out.
That's right.
And I think we've had to learn how to trust ourselves, how to begin to trust each other, right? So Carlton Evans, right, says that we can only move at the speed of trust, right? That's real powerful. The village and the vision that you've had, right? One of the things that really also just spoke to my spirit around this, and I knew Mike and Erica have something going that's right, is you wanted to do a citywide open house for every graduate of Lansing schools.
Yeah.
How'd that come about?
Man, I'm going to tell this story for the first time ever in a space like this. That open house really divided the village from what we had started with. We started with a group of people. We decided we were going to go get influential people from all throughout the community, coaches, teachers, just people who we knew had influence with young people. Brought all those people to barbers, brought all those people to the table, and we just started doing things like, barbecues in the park and just stepping out, so on and so forth. The open house was like our first journey into like this other realm of big event type space. And so it was a huge undertaking, but we were sitting around a campfire one night having a couple beers, and I was talking with Erica, and this was like when it's just like they were talking about, kids graduating and not having anything going on. They kind of just cut school midway, and it's like everything was just dead and it was done. And I was like, man, we got to do something for these kids. Like, some of these seniors ain't gonna never see each other again in that space, right? And so we were just talking back and forth, and I always believe like if things are kind of ordained and God puts this in my head, because I don't know where it comes from. I just all of a sudden will think like this is a journey I need to be on. I don't know why I'm on it, and then everything just kind of folds together. And I was like, yo, we should do like an open house. Yeah. And she was like, what do you mean? I was like, just like something like barbecue and like all of that good stuff for all the kids. And so I'm so excited about this vision I just had for this, and she's excited with me. And the people we was at the barbecue with weren't involved in any of this work we do, but or at the bonfire, and I got in our text group with our group of people that was involved with the village, and I was like, y'all, I got this idea. I think it was like 1 week away. I was like, next Saturday, let's do this open house. We can plan it, do it at the Capitol on the Capitol lawn, because guess where everybody goes when they get done graduating? They go to the Capitol. So I lay out this whole vision, and man, the room was like, you ain't ask us about none of that. You ain't asked me what I got going on. It just I was so excited about this vision and how we was gonna do this, and then the room was just like, there was one person in particular who was just super upset that I planned this thing without them, and it wasn't a plan. Right. So that it started in struggle is what I'm saying. Yeah. It started in like, we did that whole thing, myself and my wife, by ourselves for the most part. Yeah. Because we had this big village that went into it, and then because of that divide that happened over that vision, the whole rest of this group kind of picked a side and went another direction, and it was left with like, well, if y'all gonna do it, then do it. And so that was like, y'all don't put that task on us and think we ain't gonna finish this thing. Mm-hmm. So it was huge. We put out on our podcast that we wanted to do it, talked about, receiving donations. We were able to bring in, I believe, somewhere close to $13,000 in like 3 days.
Think about that.
For that. And so we were able to give every young person that came, I believe it was like $166, just in a money order, so they could go off of whatever they were doing in their future. We had come together with you all, and so it was just amazing, man, the support that we were able to get, even though I think that some people left us out to dry on that. So that's the story. It started through struggle, and it's funny because nothing we've done has not been through that.
That's right.
From this point, from that point, it was like everything we try to do has been through struggle. But fortunately, we have folks like you and our village, outside of the bigger village we try to create, that have supported us and believed in us and seen the vision as we seen it. Or if they didn't see it, there's like, I trust you. And so there was, just like you, just willing to throw it what we believe we need for the vision, and doesn't always ask questions. That's the faith in what we're doing. So,
well, and that heart and that vision that you all have had has been for the kids solely.
Yeah, man.
Right? I remember the statement that you made, and it just hit me. Not all of our kids may get an open house this year.
That's right.
We want to make sure that every single kid gets an open house this year.
Or at least access to one.
That's right.
Yeah.
Which is about more than just cake and meatballs and photos, but it's not more than that either.
Yeah.
Sometimes just cake and meatballs and photos.
That's right.
Because sometimes kids just need to know they're celebrated and they're worth it.
Yeah.
Right? But here's the privilege of, from our vantage point, the privilege of seeing you all do that is that we're like, oh, wait a minute. The village is working to take care of our scholars. Wait a minute. We have shared interests.
Yeah.
Right? And to be perfectly honest, we can't do what the village can do. Right? And so it's been a privilege to partner with you guys in that work. And you all have continued to keep the door open for post-secondary partners. Right, for military, for other nonprofit organizations, for the district, for the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
And it's continued to be, but without ever sacrificing quality.
Yeah.
Right, keeping the drumbeat. Right, and so it's been incredibly encouraging to be partners in that work, along with other activities, because the heart and the consistency that you all have had, even through struggle. Because you and I both know we've not done everything perfect, but also other folks have not done stuff perfect either.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be that stuff gets in the way of our kids' success.
And a lot of times it does. I mean, that's a lot of times what's, these young people that are, I just think about when I was their age, I didn't know that adults existed. Like, y'all got lives going on up there. Like, I don't care about what y'all got going on, man. But a lot of times that was a lot of the barrier I had to things I needed. Yeah. So when you talk about, like, what they need and what I think we focused on having at the open house were, things that were, resources for those young people as they graduate out into the world, and what we recognize and what I even recognized as a young man. And as I coach football at Sexton, I recognize that a lot of these young kids, man, they have all the resources in the world as they're in school. And as soon as they graduate, it's like, they're just kind of the stepchild at that point. Nobody cares or thinks about them anymore. Well, you all do. And so we find like-minded people. That's why we're connected with you guys. We've connected with Olivet and some of these other organizations who are dealing with them as they're 18 and aging out of the school district and so on. So, that's our focus. A lot of times people don't understand that about the villages. That's really kind of our focus, is that age group that doesn't have all the resources and things. And so that's where we kind of focus at.
You know, and I think too, Mike, there's been a theme that when you've explained the village to me, it's there was a gap, there was a need.
Yeah.
It needed to be filled.
Yeah.
And that's been in more than one circumstance, more than one situation.
And it changes.
Exactly right. It changes in ways that are responsive to what the kids need.
That's right.
And the kids might be in 6th grade, or they might be 24 years old, trying to figure their life out.
Yeah, I mean, when we first started, I think the gap we needed was like young people didn't have a trusted source they can go to with their issues and problems. So we tried to bring those trusted people together, right? Those credible messengers. Once we had all those folks together and we kind of empowered them, and groups came out of that group, right? So our original village, even though they may not have been working with the village anymore, they partnered and had their own little things going on. So we kind of really empowered all this big movement towards, you know, this organic look at what we got going on and kind of affecting change with it. But then that wasn't no longer a gap. We filled that. So what's the next gap? Intervention was one of the big things that needed to be in Lansing we didn't have. Intervening in some of these violent crimes that were going on in cyclical and retaliatory gunfire. So we jumped in that lane because there was nobody there. And so then as we worked that lane, we found out there's this group called Advanced Peace that's out countrywide. And so we brought that group here, made sure that was lasting and was here and seated. And so then we could jump out of that lane, and then where's the next gap at? And one gap we realized that was there during that process was there's no unity or collaboration or conversation amongst all these people that are working in these silos. So there's a gap there. Now let's jump in that space and make sure that we can bring all those folks together, and that's kind of the lane we're in now. But it's consistently evolved. I always talk about this, and I tell people, and I don't know if when I say this, I need a genuine reaction. What is the reaction the world would give to this? I feel as if God has ordained me in Lansing to be like the gun violence project manager, right? I'm the one that's supposed to see the whole big picture and make sure everybody's kind of in their lane and resourced and has what they need. And that's kind of where I've been at, right? And that's the gap that I think hasn't been filled, and that's the gap that I'm kind of in now. And so the village mindset, I think, is that we want to empower families. People, though, I think the bigger point is like we want to empower individuals in the community to see these kids as not just a number, as a student, as an employee, as a teenager, but like as they see their own. If you could see every child as you see your own, then you're going to take a certain, a certain response to them. You're going to have a certain type of love for them, and everything you do will be committed in that. And so the way that I love my son, obviously that can't be quantified. You can't even put a value to the love that I have for my child, right? And if I can value every child in the community that way and see every child that way, and everybody in my community sees every child that way, we don't have these problems we have.
Amen.
And so that's what I'm trying to rise people to understand, and that's the village mindset. It's not like, do we do after school programs? Do we do this? Like, do we have this group of kids we cart around everywhere with us and like show off to people? No. Right. But what we do have is a network of strong citizens in this community. What my guy Paul always talks about is super citizens who are engaged and want to be involved. And that's what we would like to build towards, is more people doing that. So sometimes we come into a room and just give that speech. And then people are empowered by that. I give this speech and our conversation around why I do it. People always ask me why I do it. And the best way I can explain to people why I'm engaged the way I am is because I do love my son. I love my kids, and I don't want them to be the next victim of gun violence.
That's right.
And so I worked really hard throughout their lives to instill value in themselves so that they feel value in themselves, and empower them and give them all the tools they need to be able to move and navigate the community. But I'm not worried about them killing. I'm worried about somebody else killing them or hurting or maiming them, right? So I better get outside of my home and work with all the kids that may be around our kids, right? So I'm selfish in that nature, that I want my kids to live so badly that I'm willing to get out into the community and make sure that all the other kids ain't hurting and killing too, so mine can grow and live. And it's not that basic, but ultimately that's what it is. And if everybody had that understanding, because as we see kids that are victims of gun violence, I talk to the moms and the families, and the first thing they always tell me is that my kid wasn't involved in that. They didn't have nothing to do with this stuff, and it reached them. And so as I'm hearing it, I'm like, you know what, I completely agree with you, and I believe that your kid had nothing to do with it. But unfortunately, all the kids in their proximity were involved, and that kind of by proximity involved them. That's right. And so if every person in the community can see their love for their own child being what it is, and the necessity to work around them, then I think we'll just have such a better community. That is the village mindset. That is what we're looking for. My son was a quarterback. I was a quarterback coach. I directly worked with him at home. We threw the ball around and ran through plays and talked about coverages and did all that stuff at home. And then when we got to the field, I put him over there, and I taught and coached all his linemen and his wide receivers. So I took that hour and a half, 2 hours at practice to coach everybody around him. So to make sure that I was giving all that great tutelage to this great quarterback who went all state and all that other stuff. But if he had no line, if he had no receivers to catch the ball, how great could he be? Similarly put to the world. If you got, a lot of parents say that. They're like, I'm locking in on mine. Mine's taken care of. Mine knows and mine has the morals. That's fine, but where is he at in the world? Like, where's all the kids that are around him thinking? And so when you get people to see that, then they can start seeing off their front porch. And that's a lot of times what it's hard to get people to see. Because people don't usually get involved in this work until it directly affects them. And I'm a person who, I don't know if I was asleep one day and God slid it in my mind, but I recognize that I've got to stop it from happening. I can't just wait and hope that everything is going to be okay. So that's why I get engaged, because I do truly believe if I work on the rest of the community, then mine will be okay too. So that's a selfish nature, I guess.
Selfish nature of taking care of others.
It works out perfect, don't it?
Exactly right. Well, raise up the boys, or they'll burn down the village to feel its warmth.
That's right.
Right? So what does that root to? These boys need warmth.
Yeah.
These boys need love. And the reality is, we as a community have not loved all of our kids as we ought.
No.
There are those working their tails off to do it.
Yeah.
Right? But it's our responsibility as a community, as a whole, it seems to me, to support more.
Yeah.
To ask more, how can we help?
Yeah.
You said a really important word that actually you and Erica taught me, and I've been using a lot lately. Credible messenger. Could you break that down a little bit, and then we'll walk into sort of this next network that's being built?
Yeah, so credible messenger is an individual, again, like when we think about the village and our mindset there, when we brought all them people together, it wasn't just a call out. It was a call out, but it was a direct ask for some folks to be in that space, because they are somebody who was a credible messenger to their community. Whether or not it's a barber, a football coach, basketball coach, whoever it was. But I look at the community as, if you were to look at it like a network of people, and like these little pods of folks that, like these circles of influence, there's going to be a kid at the center of that, right, that may be having issues or problems. And around that kid are all these people that try to help or try to talk to him, but they just don't have that juice. But there's always somebody in that network or in that pod that does have that juice, who is the credible messenger that can bring that conversation to that kid, and that kid's going to listen. Just like, anytime I got my son around, like my son got to a certain age where dad don't know nothing.
That's right.
We ain't nothing but 18 years apart, but there's a certain time when I don't know nothing no more.
That's right.
So I got to send the credible messenger in. Who is the new credible messenger for him, right? And they could take that same thing I just said in there, and then he'll come back and tell me, yeah, such and such was telling me. I just told you that 2 days ago, bruh. So, like, that's kind of how it has to go, like, in our community. And so when we can find those individuals, and it's not just individuals. Like, I could be a credible messenger for 4 or 5 kids, but I don't have no influence with these 10. Sure. So I got to go find who the credible messenger is for those 10. And there's a term Tashmika put me up, actually. It's called pod mapping, and that's really what we started doing was, if we find an individual who needs help, or is not listening to nobody, I need to find their credible messenger. How do I do that? I have to pod map out, like, who is close to them, who's close to that person, and then get to conversation with 3 or 4 deep, and then I find out, okay, they listen to that person. So now I know where to go to get the information I need to get to that kid, right? So that's where the credible messenger conversation came from, and then we put that into our pod mapping conversation. And all of this comes from a harm reduction approach. I mean, I was really at a time in 2020 where I was around a lot of people doing a lot of great work as I was trying to build how I was going to attack this gun violence. And so I was able to snatch from domestic violence conversation and how they're working on, eradicating that, and how they're supporting folks that were victims of that. I was able to snatch from that work I was able to snatch from Survivor's work with Tashmika and listening to her brilliance. I was able to snatch from Angela Waters Austin and her conversation around policing and policy change. So I was just around this group of people that didn't know they were like feeding me all of this wealth of knowledge on how to deal with gun violence, because nobody was in that level of it, right? People were just like, let's throw a basketball tournament. That'll fix gun violence. And I'm like, wait a minute, we got to go way deeper than that. And so how can I go deeper than that? What do I need to do? And so as I was like in this world, kind of beating all this off of all these amazing minds, I was getting fed all of this stuff. And it's like, wow, I need to take that and I need to see that. Oh, that pod mapping, that makes a ton of sense. Credible messengers, yeah, that's great. You can bring that in here. And so I was kind of able to build this flow that works.
Well, what's been so interesting about it too, within that flow, and that the reason that credible messengers work, and you can make the connection between a credible messenger and the person that needs to hear it, is actually based on humility and trust.
Yeah.
Right? It's saying, wait a minute, I'm not the one.
Yeah.
Who is?
That's right. Gotta be. And that's the part we have a lot of problems with people, is that part. Yeah. You ain't the one, find the one.
That's right.
And that's what we try to do, is that if it ain't gonna be me all the time. And I think that's a lot of the problem with folks who are trying to find help, and that's what we're trying to teach in our next level of work we're doing, is teaching folks that the person you like isn't always the credible messenger that kid needs.
That's right.
The person that you feel comfortable with is not always the person that person needs.
That's right.
And so if we can teach more people to understand that, but you're right, it comes through trust, it comes through lived experience, it comes through all of that, just your ability to sit and listen sometimes. Like, kids don't want to be talked to. I just always, and I can play this back in my mind at 15 years old. I was a kid, I was locked up and waved to adult court at 15. You couldn't have programmed me into nothing. I wasn't trying to be a part of no organizations. Right. Get me out of jail and let me back out here so I can smoke my cigarettes and hang out and drink and do what I want to do. That was really where my mind was at. So if I recognize that about these young kids, why would I take the same, hey, kid, want to go to a baseball game approach?
That's right.
It's not the same approach we got to take. So
not if we want real results.
Not if we want real results.
We want to reach real hearts.
Yeah.
I mean, but there's been something to it too, as we talk about credible messengers. We talk about recognizing who is the right fit and who isn't. Recognizing, wait a minute, I'm not the one.
Yeah.
But we all play unique roles.
Yeah.
Right. Then along comes this concept that's birthed in Omaha 17 years ago. Right, called the Omaha Empowerment Network, which builds out a table called Omaha 360. We start to get wind of it. A guy by the name of Greg McNeil says, hey, Justin, have you thought about this? Who would be the right fit? I say, well, it's a Mike and Erica thing, because this is literally the Village. It feels like the Village's next step.
Yeah.
Right, in my mind at least. That's the simplest way I can describe it.
God touched you too then.
That's exactly right. And so we all talked, and not only did it make sense, I mean, I'll let you take it because you know about it more than I do. But this is national best practice recognized by the Department of Justice to reduce gun violence.
That's right.
In a city.
That's right. Now Lansing, 112,000 people, has ×2 Department of Justice recognized gun violence prevention initiatives because of the work that we've done. Right. So I'm very proud of that. And then secondary to that is, how does this get going? Another white man hits my inbox talking to me about something that I don't trust. And Greg McNeil.
I feel like I'm noticing a theme. This is a good thing.
Yeah,
this is a good thing.
And there's no racial component here. I just don't be knowing, you know what I mean? So I didn't answer it. But then the other white guy that I didn't trust 2 to 4 years ago hit me up and says, hey man, that guy's actually real legit. Let's talk about this 360 thing. Yeah. So I met up with y'all there, and we had that sit-in, and we watched Willie Barney and, all the conversation around it. And again, man, I'm just always in the right place, because that was crazy that I seen that at the time we was really hurting for all of the answers on where we go from here, and it just landed right in our lap right there. So I knew that I had the right support in the room with you being there too, so it's like, all right, I think I could take this on. I don't think I could have taken it on without knowing you was going to be supportive of it, though, because it's a tough ask, like trying to get the people we've got in the room with my history with all of those folks and the activism that I've had to do, in reference to all of them. It was going to be a difficult call without you being in that space. So, yeah, man, Lansing 360, what we now call our component of the Omaha 360 model, is just booming. We just had our meeting earlier today. just really trying to get to the solutions of things, and the people.
Maybe
that,
break down a little bit of what it even is.
Yeah.
And then let's get into the.
So Lansing, or the 360 Table is a gun violence collaborative. It's a meeting that's generally put together by community advocates or community folks, and this table is put together inviting the police department and any other organizations that are proximal to or work directly with gun violence prevention or intervention or support. And so that's what it is. It's a collaborative. It's the part that I told you was missing, right? There's all these silos of people working in these spaces, but nobody's talking to each other. So there's a lot of redundant work. There's a lot of lack of resources to folks that need to be resourced better. There's people who have a ton of resources and have no vision how to use it. And so this table is to have that conversation about where things should be. Where should we be working at? What systems need to be in place, what policy changes need to happen. But I think one of the things that really caught me was, and one thing I recognized even when we started the Village, was like there's no trust in the community for the police department, right? And it's just earned. Like they've not earned the trust of the community in a lot of ways, and they've really hurt the community's trust. And so the problem with that is if we have that relationship with the police department, they go home to their neighborhoods and communities and they don't have to deal with that. We have to deal with it 24/7, 365. They got to deal with it with the 40 hours they work a week. So it really hurts us if we don't have that relationship. It also hurts our closure rates, right? So we're not closing any crimes. No crimes are getting solved because community's not coming forward. They're not wanting to speak on these things, right? And so if they don't trust the police, they ain't talking. If I don't trust you're going to do right with the information, if you're going to put me out bad, they're not talking. So we have a bunch of shootings that aren't being solved and things that aren't, murders that aren't being solved and so on. So one of the things Omaha was able to do is correct that. They were able to fix that process by allowing the police department to come in here and actually be transparent, be accountable to the community. And we need that more than anything in the city of Lansing right now. So I was all for that. I was in an advocacy and activism role prior. I was the one calling them out, and making sure that the whole world knew when they messed up and when they misstepped. But I think this is just a better seated table that we can have that real conversation if they mess up. If they're not doing right by us, then we can come to the table and say, hey, this is where we love to see you guys be better if you really want that relationship with us that you say you want. And so we've been doing it now for 8 months, and it's been amazing. Chief Backus, who is our new sitting chief, who was the assistant chief at the time we started this, has been really influential in getting us in spaces, but showing up transparent and accountable to us. And in that space that's open to the public, but also just privately, I can call him anytime and say, hey, man, this is a problem. I need y'all to look into this before it ever gets to a citywide scale where people are upset and frantic and mad about it. So I think this relationship is what I tried to build in the beginning when we first started the Village with Chief Green. I try to build that relationship, but it just didn't work in that time. It wasn't the right time.
Right.
Now is the right time. I think we have everybody on board for it. So that's the space, and that's what we've been able to do there. And where we would like to go with it is when that information is being provided and we're in those spaces with all of that, is what do we do with that information now we have? And so that's what we're doing now is like we're working through every week what we learn in here, putting strategy together to bring solutions to the problems that we've come up with. And that's just not what's happened in the city of Lansing. There's never been this robust solution-oriented room that's fixing things and doing things to make sure we're getting to those solutions. A lot of times when it comes to gun violence, everybody that's in that space a lot of times has their own job they're doing. So they come into that room and everybody like makes these grandiose plans and talks about all these things, and then they shut the meeting down and everybody goes back to their life, right? We're not doing that though. This is actually moving things along. So that's the space. And then the Lansing Empowerment Network, which also is a process that's coming out of Omaha, is that boots on the ground work. Yeah. So when we identify a problem or a system or a policy needs to change, or whatever the case is, and we need to put something in place, that Empowerment Network is the boots on the ground. It's like the worker bees that are putting it together and doing it. Yeah. And so we're holding the 360 table to gather information from the community and police and municipality in order to go back to our table and say, okay, this is what we've heard. This is what's needed. So it's been productive, man. I'm really excited about this.
Well, and what I'm seeing more and more, Mike, is that that common element that we want, which is trust.
Yeah.
right? You're having folks, like you're saying, like police department and several different police departments, right, around the region.
Yeah.
Right, and for example, the mayor's support.
Absolutely.
And in fact, I don't think it's any secret, you and the mayor have not always agreed on all of his policy choices.
You said that great. Yeah.
But on this topic,
man,
where are we at?
We're kin on this topic. Seems to be. Yeah. I don't know that we were ever far away from that in perspective. I think he's always wanted to do something. I think the part that we missed all the time was that the credible messenger part. That you like that person, but that doesn't mean that person is right for the cause.
Sure.
He's learning that. Yeah. Being in this space over the last 6 months, he's been in pretty much every meeting. Yeah. He's learning that, and I think that that's okay. You don't know what you don't know. Right. And until we were able to get to a point where we could have some direct conversation with each other, I don't think that he understood me.
Sure.
And I didn't understand his role and want to see the city succeed and be safe. And I think we're finding that out. So again, that's another platform that we're providing, is this space for healing, this space for learning each other. There's no two farther people away from each other than me and the mayor. You know what I mean? Like as we've gone over the last 5 years, and so for us to be at the same table, and I recognize how odd it seems. Like I mean, as I'm like, Mr. Mayor, can I? And he's like, oh my God, that's a great idea. It just is. We're growing into the feeling of it.
I love it.
I do.
I get kind of teared up every time I see it.
You know what? I want people to understand that it's for the babies, man. And I think that no matter what, I've always said that. I think there was things that were in place. There was a lot of litigation going on. There was reasons why we couldn't have this type of robust conversation amongst each other. But as soon as that was out of the way, man, we've been full bore. And so it was going to need to happen. I don't think we were ever going to get to resolutions we wanted in the city without these two polarizing forces coming together.
That's right.
And we're there. I mean, more polarizing than me and the mayor has been me and the police department. I mean, we've had some knockdown dragouts, all the way back to '98. So us being able to come together and having a chief that's, he's introducing me to his counterparts and people around the community. Again, we have East Lansing in the space now. Yeah. The city manager from East Lansing's here. Yeah. We have Waverly District's CSO. They're police officers in the schools in the district. So we got Ingham County Police Department and Sheriff's Department in the conversation. We've had FBI and ATF in this conversation. Those folks wouldn't have came to the table had we not been able to resolve our issues and come together. So everybody always stated while we were having the beefs that we were having there, how can these kids stop what they doing if they can't see y'all adults acting right? Well, now we got it together. So that's powerful, man. It is powerful.
Mike, is beautiful, right? But also I will tell you this. I've talked to a handful of folks who have just, followed this city and love this city, and they say, wait a minute. If Mike and Andy agree on this, we got to be going in the right direction, right? And that's not a high pressure on anyone. That's a privilege for everyone.
Yeah.
Right? We know this. Unless the Lord builds the house, those that labor toil in vain. Unless the Lord watches over the city, the watchman stays awake in vain. Right? This work is going to happen whether we're a part of it or not. But if we're a part of it, we're a privilege.
Yeah.
Right? And it is a privilege to walk along this road with you and Erica and the entire Lansing Empowerment Network team, because you ready for me to get selfish on this one?
What's up?
I need my babies to be okay.
Man, you feel me?
And we got 10,000 future scholars that need to be okay.
That's right.
In this district.
That's right.
And so if this works, our kids are safer, healthier, and stronger.
Yeah. And if your kids are healthier, safer, stronger than everybody else's kids are. So that's why it's easy to be selfish in that nature. If mine's okay, more than likely the rest of them all are going to be okay too. So, absolutely, man.
Mike Lynn, my friend, my colleague, thank you for your work.
Yeah.
Thank you for your heart in the city.
Absolutely. Thank you, brother.
That's where we're at.
That's it.
We did it.
That was good, man.
Look. Okay, 51-7, take it to the grave. Legends never die, that's why we still awake. Sun keep beaming, city still breathing. Living in the moment, never gonna leave it. 51-7, take it to the grave. Legends never die, that's why we still awake. Sun keep beaming, city still breathing. Living in the moment, never gonna leave it.
Been too many moments of silence, too many lives have been lost to gun violence. My God, we need some guidance. It's the same city that can be so tragic, also produces a brother like Shabazz and births a man like magic. Why I'm Lansing, born and raised, 517 to the grave. We got culture in our veins, we take the reins. With reformation comes a promise, better future is upon us. You can doubt it like Thomas, but we gon' rise like Adonis, and ain't nobody gon' stop us. We gon' get better, this a letter to my city that we fed up. Ain't gon' let applying pressure until everybody gets it. They can't try us, they can't buy us, gentrify us. When it's coming to my city, man, I'm blue collar biased. They can't divide us, united we stand like digits on a hand. Make it to the promised land, we coming up with a plan to make this a better place. I'm proud of Lansing, you can see it on my face. We gotta retrace and learn how to win this fight.
5017, take it to the grave. Legends never die, that's why we still awake. Sun keep beaming, city still breathing. Living in the moment, never gonna leave it. 5017, take it to the grave. Legends never die, that's why we still awake. Sun keep beaming, city still breathing. Living in the moment, never gonna leave it. I ain't never seen a city sleep. You could really hit a city breathe. They be saying we ain't got culture, they just don't know what it really means. No, we gotta represent heavy underrated, yeah, we gotta make a scene. No shade to the other guys, but you can't deny we the one to be. Capital city, the map looking pretty when we on it. So community driven, the people we living with, loving each other. That's all that we seeking for, ain't no reason to need more. A lot of people saying go to the D4, so we need to be seen more. Dream more, need a reason to be more, we just gotta believe more. I mold my style around the influences that I've witnessed. A new beginning, truer vision, it'll soon be finished. Endless inspiration from the people that I've known. Yes, I've grown to love the city as the city made me grown. Know whatever way you choosing for yourself to be expressed, there's a place that's meant for you so you can grow into your best. I can attest to its greatness with my chest, I'm here to say it. We will soon become the mecca of success. I'm expecting nothing. 5017, take it to the grave. Legends never die, that's why we still awake. Sun keep beaming, city still breathing. Living in the moment, never gonna leave it. 5017, take it to the grave. Legends never die, that's why we still awake. Sun keep beaming,